Welcome to this week's Travel Talk Show. This week we're heading to Peru in the amazing Andes Mountains to learn about this beautiful area and the Salkantay trek to Machu Picchu. A little bit about who we are. We are the Women's Travel Club and we offer small group tours for women. Our tours are innovative and designed specifically with the women traveler in mind. Our tours are typically between 10 and 16 travelers. Sometimes we have a few more than that. Sometimes we'll have less depending on logistics of the tour. But our average is about 10 to 16. And these small groups allow us to include activities and inclusions that you can't do with a larger group. Most women join our tours as solo travelers, but you will quickly make some great travel friends. We do offer roommate matching if you come as a solo and would like to take advantage of the double occupancy rate. I am Marianne Southall, and I look after the marketing department for the Women's Travel Club. I am joined by Irene Murray from Operations Department. So she is typically who you will get if you call in or you send an email, or if you go on the chat on our website. Usually that's Irene that you're talking to. So some of you out there might already have had some communications with Irene along the way. She also looks after travel insurance. Today we have a special guest. We are joined by Nadia Laban from Mountain Lodges of Peru, and she is going to introduce us to this spectacular area and share what it's like to trek the Salkantay Trail. Hi, Nadia, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today and sharing with us. Quite looking forward to it. I was very fortunate to experience this a few years ago, and I have to say it was truly one of the most amazing things I've ever done. I felt so accomplished doing it, and it really was an experience like nothing I've ever done. So thank you for joining us and thank you for sharing this with everybody.
Thank you, Marianne and Irene. I'm delighted to be here and sharing these beautiful mountains of Peru. So I'll get started, and people are free to interrupt me if they have questions. We can also do questions at the end. Let's see how we move along. So I hope everybody's good, is having a good day, not too much snow. It's full moon, it's a snow moon, so delighted of this special day. The Salkantay trek is probably one of the most varied and beautiful trek you can do in Peru. It's in the area of Cusco in the southern part of Peru. It is also very close to what is called the classic Inca Trail, which is a hiking trek that takes you to the sanctuary of Machu Picchu. But it's within a national park and you have to camp. And this option of the Salkantay trek takes you through these beautiful mountains, but you stay in luxurious lodges along the way. For those who are not familiar with how to get to Peru, it's a pretty easy destination for Northern Americans. So you can fly to Lima directly from many gateway cities. And then from Lima, you just take a domestic flight to about an hour and 15 minutes to the city of Cusco. And Cusco was the imperial city of the Incas. So it's just an amazing city that you want to explore. The area where the Salkantay trek is located is really not far from the city of Cusco. You can see Cusco here on the bottom right. It's about a 2.5 hour, 3-hour drive to the start of the trek. And Machu Picchu is really not very far. The trek itself is about 30 miles and you get to Machu Picchu. So it's, again, not far from a condor's view point, but we're going to walk it over 6 days. The itinerary that the company presents, it's really well thought through because it allows you time to acclimate once you arrive in Cusco, which is 11,000 feet after a long flight from Canada, and you spend time visiting the city, meeting the guides and so forth. And then you head out in the mountains. And then at the end, you have a full day of exploring the sanctuary of Machu Picchu before leaving for home. So, as I mentioned, Cusco was the capital of the Incas, and it still remains full of archaeological sites, and a lot of the colonial buildings, like the churches and these beautiful homes, were built on top of Inca walls. So you still see the Inca walls as you walk through the streets. This is also an area with a very large indigenous population with traditional costumes and traditional dances that you can see in the streets often. So you have an incredible, colorful experience just walking through the town. So we'll do a city tour one morning, and we go see some of the major archaeological sites, the Baroque churches. As you can see, this Inca wall, it's spectacularly built. We also stay while in Cusco in this boutique hotel. It's a lovely 32-room boutique hotel in colonial style, but modern interior, where you have all the comfort. So there's a restaurant, there's a bar. You can walk in two blocks away is the main square. So it's really a lovely base for your experience in Cusco. And while you're there, we want you also to experience the market. So we go on a trip to the local market, and then do a cooking class. So Peruvian cuisine is now renowned worldwide for being one of the most innovative and diverse all over. So this is the Cusco experience, and we spent the last night meeting again with the guides to go over equipment, any questions you may have, and what the itinerary is for the next day. This is the main square of Cusco. It has two beautiful cathedrals in it. It looks like a landscape from a magic place. So I want to kind of give you an idea. I'm a map person, so of the geography of the place. So when you're in Cusco, you're on the west side of the Andes, and the Andes is like the Himalayas or the Alps, these incredible mountain range. And the beauty of this trek is that you actually get to cross the Andes from west to east. So there is the Salkantay Pass that we cross on day 3 of the trek, which is about 15,000 feet. And it seems really high, but actually you've been staying in Cusco for 2 nights at 11,000. You stay at the first lodge for 2 nights at 12,005. So it's not that bad, especially since you will be acclimated. But once you cross the pass, you're looking at the Amazon basin, and you can see how quickly the landscape becomes very green. There is a lot of rural communities in this area, but the cloud forest is one of the most diverse environments on the planet, and Machu Picchu is in the cloud forest. So a lot of birds and butterflies and insects once you come down from the pass. These are the 4 lodges. We spent 2 nights at the first below the pass, and 1 night each in the Elzada lodges. And then we have to walk to the confluence of the river here, and then take a 30-minute train ride to the town of Aguascalientes, which is below Machu Picchu, where we spend 1 night before visiting the sanctuary. So let's get on hiking. So we leave Cusco, and on the first day of hiking, we stop at an archaeological site. This is a beautiful Inca temple to the moon. We have lunch in a farm-to-table little farmhouse. Sometimes we can visit a local weaving and knitting community in the village. And then you head out on the trail, and immediately you start walking basically from about, again, 11,000, 10,000 to about 12. And this is the land of the condors. We can actually even drive if that day you're not very, strong, but hiking is a good way to get going. And it's about 2.5 hours to the first lodge, 3 hours depending on the weather. And once you arrive at each of these lodges, you're welcomed with a hot or cold drink, a little wet towel. The staff is really happy to see you. And here you are in the middle of these snow-capped peaks, and you can head out for a jacuzzi. There is a sauna, a traditional like sweat lodge sauna. This lodge has 12 rooms because we spent 2 nights. So it's possible that there's another group at the same time. Otherwise, the other lodges only have 6 rooms. So it's a very small, intimate experience. We do a pisco sour tasting at the first lodge. It's really very comfortable, Wi-Fi, electricity, everything you need. There is a conservation project just outside the lodge to grow endemic plants and then put them back in the community. We can explore that. So we arrive at this lodge. We have the part of the afternoon just resting. The next morning, we do an acclimatization hike to a nearby glacial lake. This is Humantay Lake. It's about a 3-hour excursion that we do in the morning. As you can see, the glaciers are truly retreating. But this is a great experience. We usually bring a shaman with us who does a little ceremony to bless the earth, to send us off on a happy note. The afternoon again is for resting, resetting your equipment for the hike over the pass. All the meals are included here. You get choices. You can have vegetarian, you can have, whatever type of restriction you have is being taken care of. And the hike is about, I would say, 3 to 4 hours to the pass itself. The trail is very well marked. Your luggage is always carried by mules and horses. So it's a pretty, comfortable trail. And you only carry a day pack with your water bottle, your rain gear, whatever warm clothes you may need along the way. And if you're lucky enough, like these people, you have a very close view of the Salkantay Mountain, which is fantastic. As you can see, there is a horse that always follows along with the trekking groups because we have extra food, extra water, we have an oxygen tank, we have extra equipment in case it's needed. If you're riding a horse on this program, which some of you may be interested in doing, the horses tend to depart a little later because they move a lot faster. So you can do the same distance in probably 1 to 2 hours less. But of course, sometimes you get together again at the pass, you have a little snack, water. There is always 2 guides with the group. One is in the front and one is in the back. Some people like to walk a little faster, but then usually every hour or so, the group reunites and the guides share stories or advice. So after the pass, you have about a 2-hour downhill to the lodge. And this is a 6-room lodge just below the mountains. It's absolutely amazing stargazing at this elevation, Marianne can tell. You can see the Milky Way like it was a river crossing the sky. It's really beautiful. So you spend the night here, then the next morning you start coming down. It's about a 3 to 4 hour downhill. And as you can see, the landscape is already very different. This is starting to be the cloud forest. It's a reserve in the back of the lodge for the spectacle bear. And here you have a little bit more time. So you get down for lunch, late lunch. You can use the jacuzzi, you can walk around some more. And we do what's called a pachamanca meal. So it's a traditional ceremonial meal where they cook the vegetables and the meat under the hot stones, a bit like they do in Pacific Islands and other parts of the world. So it's a really interesting and very tasty meal. You may get to taste the guinea pig too. So there is always plenty of food. There is morning snacks to take with you on the trek. There is cookies for the afternoon tea. So you won't lose any weight on this trip, I assure you. As you continue the trek, you start going deeper into what's called a cloud forest. There is a lot of flowers, there is butterflies, birds. And you get to the fourth lodge, which is Lukma Lodge, which is set into an area with a lot of orchards and coffee farms. So we stop along the way usually and visit a coffee farm that does organic coffee you can buy. It's part of the interaction and sustain and provide, you know, some funds to the community directly. And if you were to do the horseback riding, at this point, the horses go back before they get to this lodge, because the section of the trail leading to this lodge for the last hour is a classic official Inca trail, which has, you know, slabs of stones, and they don't want the horses to damage any of this. So you say goodbye to the horses, and then you check in at this lodge. The next morning, everybody has to walk. It's one more day. It's day 6 of the hiking. You leave this valley called Santa Teresa. You hike on this ridge to the right here, and you reach a point called Yactapata, which has a pretty big fort from Inca times. And from here, they used to communicate directly by signaling or fire to Machu Picchu. And here you get the first view of Machu Picchu from the southeast. You can see Huayna Picchu here. This is the ridge where the archaeological site is situated. When people come by train to Machu Picchu, they come exactly from the opposite direction. So it's a very interesting viewpoint. You hike all the way down to the river. It's a confluence of 2 rivers. And that's where we get on the train to the little town of Aguascalientes. So just to summarize, these are the 4 lodges you spend time with. As you can see, the scenery is very different. They're just as comfortable, each one of them. They all have the jacuzzi and the massage. So you won't miss any treat on the way. And here, I just want to show you where you end the trek at this hydroelectric plant at the confluence of the rivers. We usually take a train at 3 o'clock to the town of Aguascalientes. It's only about 30 minutes. And we spend the night in Aguascalientes. Aguascalientes is the town where the train comes in from Cusco area, and for the people that visit Machu Picchu. Again, to go to Machu Picchu Sanctuary, you have to take the bus the next morning along this very switchback road. And here is how we access the sanctuary. The Inca Terra Pueblo Hotel, where we stay, is a fabulous place. It's a kind of a similar environment to our lodges, a lot bigger. They're all casitas set in amazing gardens, well known for their orchids. And then the next morning we take the bus to Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu has been so, you know, visited that now there is more regulations on how you can do this. So normally you take a morning visit if you want to do the Huayna Picchu hike. Otherwise, we can just visit the center of the sanctuary. You can also do excursions to other areas of the site. So this is the view on the right side that you have from Huayna Picchu. It's about an hour and a half uphill. It's a little steep and exposed, but spectacular views. And that's the entrance to the archaeological site. So on the last day of the program, we depart in the morning from Aguascalientes. So you get 2 nights in that beautiful hotel. And then in the morning you leave with these special trains that have views about on the ceiling. So you get a view of the canyon as you leave the area of Machu Picchu. And then we drive, we take the train to a town called Ollantaytambo, which is also a beautiful Inca town. And then we take by car straight to the airport. So if you can do this on horseback ride, as some of you are interested. The horses are all imported from Uruguay, and they're trained to be able to, ride on these trails. And the trails are actually not that uncomfortable for them. The guides are very well trained as well. All of the gear is American imported, saddles and tack and so forth. And that's me on a horse, so I've done it. And these are different scenes on how you can ride throughout the trek. It's really quite spectacular to do that. So I'm sure you'll have questions. I just summarized a few highlights. It's great because everything is included once you're are on the program. We only usually take 12 guests. We can take maybe one more if somebody wants to share in a triple rooms. Always 2 guides, all the comforts, the heating in the lodges, the jacuzzis, the Wi-Fi, the massage, the food. So you won't miss anything. And we can talk later if anybody has questions about COVID. Of course, the requirements keep changing, and we will advise you as time goes by on what's needed. Peru is more vaccinated than the US is. So all the guides and the staff is vaccinated. It's very easy to get tested if you need to do that before returning to your country. But again, everything could be different by the fall. So we will advise on this subject as time happens and as rules change. So if anybody has any questions, I'm sure Marianne will also ask.
Thank you so much. That was so wonderful. It's such great memories of being there. The lodges, which are beautiful, and I can tell you the jacuzzis were well used. After every trek, we sat in the afternoon in the jacuzzi, and the food is outstanding at the lodges. All the food is so good. If anybody has any questions, you can type them in a few different places. You could type them into the chat. When you cursor around your screen, you'll come up with a menu. And in that menu, there's a Q&A section. So you can definitely type a question into the Q&A section, or you can type it into the chat and we'll read it out. Or if you want me to open up your microphone and you can come on and say hello and ask us a question directly, just click your little raise your hand button and I'll see that and we can open up your microphone.
We do have a question actually, Marianne, regarding fitness requirements. What's your recommendation, Nadia, in terms of somebody's ability to do the tour?
Yes, so this is a real trek. So you actually walk every day from lodge to lodge. So you need to be in a pretty good shape. The good thing is, again, we have horses along the way, either for true riders or even just to rent a horse for a day. If you want to do it, you can do it really only for the first 2 or 3 days. Otherwise, the horses have to come back. But so there is always that backup option if somebody doesn't, feel so comfortable, or maybe just get over the pass if there is any acclimatization issue. I would recommend that before, 2 or 3 months before the trek, you take some long hikes on a weekend, like try to hike for like 2 or 3 hours per day on a weekend. It really helps. Some cardio helps too. I think, you can do any kind of sports, but even you could be a really strong cyclist, but then hiking is slightly different. So I do recommend doing some long hikes. It's not, we've had people of every age. We even have 10, 12 years old do it. So it's not forbidding. And again, you have a lot of support. You have the 2 guides, all your stuff is carried. It's not backpacking in any way. Should it rain, the staff at the lodge will clean your boots and dry your clothes, and there is, you know, everything you can imagine. But if you are in some good shape, it makes it so much more comfortable for yourself and time to enjoy, you know, the landscape, maybe, you know. So
And
I would
Nadia,
say moderate to strenuous
you
qualification.
mentioned about, go ahead, Marianne.
When I did it, I knew it was coming up. And so for months ahead of time, I'm like, oh, I'm going to get it, like work out every day and I'm going to be so prepared. And of course, I never did any of that. And I thought I'm going to die on this trek. But it wasn't, it is hard. There's no joke about it. You're either walking uphill or you're walking downhill. And uphill is hard on cardio and downhill is hard on your knees. But you go at your own pace. You don't have to go quickly. You're never rushed, and you know there's always time to kind of stop and have a drink of water and look around and enjoy the view. So I felt like I was incredibly slow, but our tour guide said no, he's had much slower groups. So Amy, but yes, it is. You would want to be in half decent shape. And it is the downhill. You can be going downhill for, you know, a couple hours at a time. Downhill can be very hard on your knees. So you wouldn't want to go into this if you had knee issues, I would say.
I just want to mention that hiking poles are really good for most people, recommended. Just, you know, it just gives you such extra support on the downhill. But also what I want to clarify is what makes it a little bit more challenging than hiking in the Rockies is the altitude. So if you were to do these hikes at sea level, it would be a piece of cake.
Yeah.
So we could do this on the weekend on the coast in California, but because you're hiking at anywhere between, you know, at the beginning is like 10,000 feet, at the end is 7,000 feet down, it feels different. So if you, because the program includes 2 nights in Cusco in the beginning, it's a really good time to acclimate. You rest, you drink a lot of water. Drinking a lot of water makes a huge difference. Eating light, it makes a difference. Little alcohol, let's say, the first few days. So I think it's, if you're aware of that, then the hiking difficulty is really not that bad.
Okay, thank you.
And I would definitely take medication to help with the altitude. I know everybody on our trek took like Diamox, I think was what we took, but there's different ones available. So you would definitely speak to, you know, a travel doctor or travel clinic before you went and get some medication for the altitude.
So a question that's asked is the approximate distance that each day's hike might equal.
Again, the total trek is about 30 miles. So the distance is not that much. So if you're hiking 2 hours on a flat terrain, that would be approximately 6 miles, right? Usually it's 3 miles per. Okay. But if you're doing it on an uphill, you're probably walking half that distance. So the distance is not the issue. And actually, I will send Marianne, I don't have it handy, a spreadsheet with the distances between lodges.
Okay.
Yeah. They're not that
I think
distant.
it's on our website.
Okay.
I think it says the distance and I'm pretty sure, and if it doesn't, if anybody's interested, I can send it to them, but I think
Sure.
It's got the distance, the elevation, and like kind of a time. So,
yeah, that would be helpful. So this question is obviously for you, Nadia, because when you mentioned you were on the horseback, you were quite inexperienced, I think, but somebody's asking to what degree or level of experience do they need?
Well, I'm not a rider, so I've only done it a couple of times before in my life. So what I did is I took some riding lessons for about a couple of couple of months, once a week, just to familiarize myself how I would feel sitting on a horse, because I wanted to have that experience. So so it worked out fine. You know, the guide was very good. I only had one moment when I thought, oh my God, this horse is going too fast, because the group took off and I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? But it kind of depends. See, I had a fast group, a very experienced group. So once in a while they would just say, just take it easy. We're going to go for a run. And they would just move the horses faster. Although you're in the mountains, so it's only limited areas where you can just canter, right? Because you're going up and then you're going down. It felt really safe to be on the horse itself. The horses are so well trained. And there is always more than one guide with you, depending on the group. So, but I think it would be useful to know how to ride a horse if you're going to do the whole program. If you just need to get over the pass because you're not feeling well, the horse is so lame. That kind of horse is more lame. The other horses are really, Uruguayan, what do you call them? Quarter horses. So the other ones are really good horses for the riding program. So I think a little experience helps. It doesn't need to be, super experienced, but some experience helps.
Okay.
I think almost more important than the experience, which is, having some experience, definitely. But if you're going to do the riding option for the weeks coming up before you ride, or before the trip, you want to get some riding time in, because your body, is going to be unhappy with sitting on a horse for hours a day if you're not used to riding at all. So just getting out riding, you could take some riding lessons, or I'm sure a riding school could arrange you to have some time getting some riding in before the trip, so that you're comfortable being in the saddle for a few hours a day.
Okay, thank you. One of our members, Marianne, mentioned it was a Diamox that she took, and she says she was very happy with it. She had been on the tour herself. Great. So a question about early arrival. So we can offer pre-nights at Cusco?
Yes, of course. I mean,
Great.
you're spending 2 nights already, so that's usually how much people spend before starting a trek. But if you want to spend 1 more or 2 nights more, or spend an extra, absolutely. Yeah, it's a wonderful city. You won't be tired if you had a whole week there. So very enjoyable.
Thank you. So for those ladies that had posted to our question and answers, if we didn't quite answer your question regarding fitness levels, then please put your hand up and join in the conversation. But I think we covered it as best we could.
Yeah.
So is there anybody who wants to join us?
Okay, say hello. No.
There's great
Start calling
shopping.
on people we know. I
Yes,
see Kathy Morton Beals there. You should come on, say hello.
There's a few names we recognize. Yeah. So yeah, I think that was the biggest, the numbers of questions regarding fitness level, but I think you've answered it well, Nadia. So they know just to be prepared. That's great.
Yes. And it's a very, Peru seems really third world kind of from these images, but Cusco and Lima, I mean, this is a very civilized country too, There is Cusco has beautiful 5 hotels, beautiful restaurants. There is really a lot of interesting museums. There is great textiles that you'll see in the city of Cusco that you can buy. Shopping, silver shopping is amazing. You'll just can get lost in buying Christmas presents. It's a very interesting and this indigenous component I find very appealing, that you see people that are very proud of their indigenous ethnic background, that you see costumes. Oftentimes you see dances for some celebration, whatever. So it's all really so different, you know, that you and the culture, you having all these Inca archaeological sites, the colonial churches, there is so much going on. I find it, you come back with like, oh wow, that was really, I mean, that's my feeling, but Marianne confirms.
Oh, yes. I have certain kind of towns and cities around the world that I just love, and I just feel very comfortable there. I've kind of got to know them through doing various tours, not just the Salkantay tour, but other Peru tours. And I love Cusco. I could quite happily just, you know, spend a week hanging out in Cusco because it's quaint, it's cute, it's got great food, and the people are wonderful. So yeah.
I also want to say that in my experience, Peru is a pretty safe country.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you can be robbed in Rome or anywhere, and it could happen in Peru as well. But the Cusco has a tourist police that walks around, and they're very helpful if people look lost or need help. You can get money out of an ATM machine. It's all pretty easy to be, you know, it's not like very difficult to figure things out. And the people are very warm and friendly, and they're welcoming at the lodges, the staff, the guides. So there is a lot of sort of very comfortable feeling about, I mean, I'm not trying to sell you on it, but I just feel like I'm Italian and I feel very at home in Peru.
Yes.
That's
Yeah, it
great.
almost does have a European feel to it in certain places, like just,
Lima, maybe.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Excellent.
lovely. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I don't see any other questions, so we will probably end for today, but I want to thank Nadia so much for presenting and to show us a little bit about the Salkantay track. Thank you, Irene, for being here and helping me in. Oh,
Thank you. There is one question, I'm sorry, I
okay.
just missed. It was, I guess with respect to medical issues, if they arose, how would those be handled?
So there are clinics in Cusco. There are public hospitals and there are private clinics that normally we work with. The company has a doctor on call. So if somebody feels sick along the trek, we can call the doctor. The guides all have wilderness first aid training. I mean, I think we've only had one helicopter evacuation in 15 years, so it's pretty manageable, you know. So it is pretty. I think it can be handled quite well.
Thank you.
I think we have occasionally had some issues, but the clinics in Cusco are pretty good. If they need to, you can be transferred to Lima, where everything is just like here. So yeah, and there is medical kits with the guides on the walk itself. There's medical kits in the lodges. There is actually gamma bags in the first two lodges. So if somebody has altitude sickness, there is a possibility of lowering the pressure by using the gamma bags. There's oxygen at all the lodges, only for emergency use, not for, you know, comfort. So yeah. So I think it's well managed, actually.
Yeah, it really sounds like it is.
It is definitely remote, though. When you're out going from lodge to lodge, there's no roads. There's just, you know, the trail to get to the lodge and these small communities around some of them. So you are definitely remote, but they're prepared for that. And if an emergency does arise, they have means of dealing with the emergencies.
And a couple of thank yous from the audience. Thank you, Nadia. That was a great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, see you everybody in Peru.
Yes.
Thank you,
Excellent.
Marianne.
Thanks so much. Everybody have a great day. Thank you everybody that attended. And hopefully we will see you at our next travel talk.
Great. Thank
Okay,
you.
take care.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.